Welcome to the Rap Soul Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of music that moves our hearts and gets our feet tapping. This is the intersection of rap and soul music from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. We appreciate you for listening. Share this podcast with a friend or family member who loves music as much as you do. The podcast is hosted by 12 Kyle. Next up, the Rap Soul Podcast.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy 12 Kyle from the Rap Soul Podcast. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in as you do each and every week. I really do appreciate it. I also wanted to offer a programming note. This particular episode, the Rap Soul Podcast Classic, is an old episode. And for some, it may have been something that they've heard before because it was initially on the flagship station, the 12 Kyle Podcast, back in 2016. But I wanted to give it to you guys here because the thing is that many of you didn't know my podcast existed in 2016. And the great thing about these episodes is that the information has not changed. It's not dated, and it's going to sound and feel as fresh as it did back then. So sit back and relax and check out this new episode from the Rap Soul Podcast Classic. I appreciate it. 5,000. Yo, check it out. Thanks again for checking out another edition of the 12 Kyle Podcast. I'm 12 Kyle. Then again, you probably already know that by now. If you haven't done so already, make sure that you subscribe to the podcast. You can find it everywhere. It's on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast FM, Pocket Cast, and of course, right here on SoundCloud. SoundCloud.com/ spell it out, TWELVE-KYLE. And of course, I'm on Facebook, Facebook.com/ spell it out, TWELVEKYLE. And of course, you can find me on Twitter at 12 Kyle, and you can follow the podcast at 12 Kyle Podcast. And coming soon, we will be on Google Play. All right. So here's what we're going to do today. Today, we're talking about the Fugees, their album, The Score, 20 years later. It's kind of hard to believe that this album is actually 20 years old. You got to go back to 1996. So what was going on in your life in 1996? I know for me, I was actually still in college at the time. Music was kind of crazy back then because the West still was winning. I mean, Tupac was still alive. He was on death row, and Bill Clinton was in office, and the East was slowly but surely making a comeback. Only Built from Cuban Links had come out the year before, and Mobb Deep had been out. So Biggie was popping already. So the East was definitely making a comeback, if you will. But the great thing about this album is that nobody was making music like this. The Fugees did their first album was actually called Blunted on Reality. They're formerly known as the Translator Crew. Blunted on Reality didn't really sell the way that the label thought that it would. So subsequently, people were thinking that they were going to get dropped from the label, and it's a good thing that they didn't, because they went back in the studio, and that was a pretty good album. I liked it, but they came back with this album, The Score, and I mean it was crazy. Of course, the Fugees feature Pras, Wyclef, and my personal favorite, L Boogie, Lauryn Hill. There's a lot of things we're going to talk about some of the things I like, tracks, the significance of the album. So we're definitely going to get into it. And then what they did after this album might surprise you. As I mentioned, Lauryn Hill, probably the biggest enigma, if you will, in the group. I got to go back to when I first heard L Boogie, and that's what I call her L. She's my girl. Love Lauryn Hill. Let me just take you back to the first joint that I actually heard her spitting on. And I mean, not only was she beautiful, but she could rhyme. And when I heard her rhyme for the first time, it just literally kind of just knocked me off my feet. I was blown away from what she had to say.
Yo, this is the Fugees, Refugees, about to take you on a journey into the dimensions of the Booger Basement. the basements. Word. Hey, yo, 1, 2, 3. The crew is called Refugees. And if you're going for test the rap style, stop the violence and just bring it on. Why, yo? Hey, yo, I feel kind of melancholy. People think they really know me. I keep my rapper by me while I drive in daddy's Audi. I pay the toll fighting for my own soul. It's the bourgeois type of mental sucks like a black hole. But I be making a rebel face to face to sort the EQ. The devil's wishing they can send me back to local tissue. Cause I've been wild since I was a juvenile. Afro century profile back when writing rap was a style. That kid's a wilder, so I asked the bad black. Get ready. What's the damage? Give me this to minute. Pray tell me when the revolution will begin. I turn on my TV, I check out Farrakhan on CNN. See, I'm like the phantom that's flying, I like the bird doing things you never heard. First I come from the suburbs, worth it gone. I heard you had it kinda hard, and you got your skin scorn when they were shooting on the boulevard. I got the vocab. We got the vocab.
Trust me when I tell you that nobody was rhyming like that. And then, like I said, I think the thing that really stood out to me initially was that the fact that she looked good, but she could spit bars, man. So I was just really hooked. So I was really checking for her initially when they first dropped. And then subsequently, I started to pay attention to Wyclef and Pras. When the score came, I was really, really anticipating this album because I wasn't sure how it was going to sound or how it was going to look and everything like that. So I remember buying the album, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm tearing it off, tearing up the paper, reading the liner notes, and then I start listening. And I think, obviously because I was a bigger fan of Lauryn, I was really checking for her. And I think that's one of the things that I think most hip hop fans, even though we may not want to admit it, anytime you're dealing with a group and if there's more than 2 MCs, or sometimes even if it's 2 MCs, maybe there's one MC that you're checking for just a little bit more than the other. But in this case, when this album came out, like I said, I was surprised by what Wyclef and Pras actually did. Now they you could never confuse them with, Rakim or Coogee rap. But at the same time, I think they did more than hold their own with Lauryn on this album. I think one of the things that's significant about this album is that at that particular time in 1996, you had very few groups that featured women in their groups. And one thing that was really particular about this album is that not only was the woman in the group, but she was the lead of the group. I mean, like, she clearly was the best in the group. And, they didn't come out and necessarily say it, but they acknowledged the fact that L Boogie, she was going to carry them on most songs, and she did. And that's, I think, one of the things that really stood out, particularly for people who did not hear Blunted on Reality. They didn't know how good this young lady was. Actually, she's great. So I think that was one thing that was very, very significant about the album. Also, if you look at the backdrop of where hip hop was, as I mentioned at the top, gangster rap ran rap. I mean, let's just keep it 100. Gangster rap really, took over. So really, when you had this album come out and the way that it sound and the vibe and everything was totally like, it just almost like they went in the studio and said, let's go left. Everybody else is going this way. We're going this way. We're going the other way. Some people call this alternative hip hop. I wouldn't necessarily call it alternative hip hop because at the end of the day, they were spitting. But from the production side of it, I mean, it was hip hop. It was soul. It was reggae. They had a Caribbean vibe to it. Dating to Wyclef's Haitian roots. And this is a group out of New Jersey. So I think they were able to really captivate people with that sound because, again, nobody was making this kind of music. Nobody. Obviously, this album was critically acclaimed, widely successful. They went on to sell 6 million records, which is incredible. I mean, to go from having an album that some people thought would get you dropped from a label, not that it was bad, but it just didn't sell. to the point where you sell 6 million and you're on MTV and everything. Now, I mean, that's phenomenal. It's that could never be duplicated. I think not in today's music. So I think you got to give the Fugees much prop. This album was produced. It pretty much was self-contained. I mean, it was produced by obviously the Fugees, Jerry Duplessis, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Salaam Remi, John Forte, the great Diamond D, just to name a few. But for the most part, it was, pretty self-contained. But the production was tight, man. I think when you have a group like this, you don't necessarily need beats that actually override what the MC is talking about, because you want to understand what the MCs are talking about. Because Pras and Wyclef in particular, they were solid MCs. So you didn't need a beat to necessarily drown them out per se. And then because they infused the soul and Caribbean vibe and reggae, you didn't have to have, some type of crazy ass beats. As long as you kept the beats within what we call the pocket, as long as the beats were in the pocket, everything was good. And the great thing I love about this album is that this album flows. Like, there aren't any misplaced tracks, I think. Album just flows all the way through. There's several skits throughout the album. Incredible album. So it was pretty significant at the time that it came out. Another thing I think that was very significant about the album is that it really took off commercially, but it wasn't a commercial album. Like, they didn't set out to say, okay, hey, we're going to be on MTV. No, that's not even what they were trying to do. You could tell if you go back and sit and listen to this album, and it has great replay value. You listen to this album, the album's an hour long, first and foremost. So that's great because, you never want to sit through an album and be like, oh man, is this album over? Which can happen to some albums. But I think, between the skits, they kept you entertained, and the album kind of if you listen to the skits and you listen to the songs, they kind of play all together because the skits aren't misplaced. So it actually kind of like a little small book, I guess, a little novel. So I thought that was cool. As far as the tracks, we'll go through the track listing. The album starts off with an introduction by Cool DJ Red Alert. I know that was bad, but shout out and salute to the legend DJ Red Alert on the intro. And then the album starts off with the song How Many Mics. And I mean, Lauryn sets it off on How Many Mics. She says, I get mad frustrated when I rhyme, thinking of all the kids who try to do this for all the wrong reasons. And that is so true. I mean, like, there's so many MCs out there and they're doing it for the wrong reasons. So to me, she set the tone right then and there. I mean, it's very subtle, but she set the tone. And of course, the next song on the album, the smash Ready or Not, followed by Zealots. One line that really kind of stood out to me on Zealots was Wyclef said, he kind of referenced to the fact that the rumors that we had heard, or what people were saying about the album, and the previous album, I should say, the line goes something like, girls should go solo, guys should stop rapping. And that's what a lot of people were saying after the Blunted on Reality album, because they just felt like, when they heard L Boogie rhyme, like, they were like, yo, this young lady is dope. Why is she with these two guys? Like, they're not really upholding their end of the bargain, and she's literally carrying this album. So I thought that was funny that Wyclef threw that line in there. The next song on the album, The Beast. The Beast talks about corruption, government corruption, and police brutality. That's the main feature of the song. And I think if you listen to that song and you read the words to the song, I think you can apply a lot of that with what is going on today. Very, very deep song. The next song on the album is the smash Fuji La. I mean, what can I say? That very few people don't like that song. It is a great, great song. Very, radio friendly as well. But, they killed it. And the video was dope. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. The next song on the album, Family Business, very, very underrated track. That track features Omega and Refugee affiliate John Forte. The next was the smash Killing Me Softly, which is a cover of a Roberta Flack song. Now, if you don't remember Roberta Flack doing Killing Me Softly, you really should check out that song. I don't know how you could have missed it, but some of you young whippersnappers haven't heard that song before, but go check out Roberta Flack's Killing Me Softly. I think coming into this album, personally, I think I knew that I can't even remember if I knew that she could really, really sing. When I heard Killing Me Softly for the first time, I was like, at first I had to stop because I was very familiar with the Roberta Flack song, but I'm like, yo, this is Lauryn singing it. I mean, I was really even blown away because I knew that she could rap, but now I'm like, damn, she could sing too, and she's fine. So yeah, man. That song really featured Lauryn in you just knew right then and there that she was. I mean, Lauryn to me always had star written all over her, but she was really, really going to take off from there. The next song on the album, The Score, which is a very, very dope track. Again, Proswell and Wyclef come off very good on this one. This features the legendary Diamond D. The next song on the album is The Mask. Very melodic right there, as far as the beats and everything. I thought it was a very good track. The next track after that is the quote unquote posse cut, Jersey in the House. This one features Paquan, my girl Rod Digger, Young Z from The Outsiders, and John Forte. And then the next song, Wyclef covers a reggae tune, No Woman, No Cry. And then the final cut on the album is the Manifest and outro. And I'll talk about that in just a second. Let me get to some of my favorites. Obviously, How Many Mics is one of my favorites. I like the way that, Lauryn comes in on that. And again, I think Wyclef and Proswell, people tend to, it seemed like they used to just dump on Pros a lot. And I'm not going to say Pros was a great, Pros was decent. You know what I'm saying? And I think he held his own on this album. I think, because Wyclef and Lauryn had a lot of post-score success, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I think people a little bit more critical of Pros. I think Pros, he did a pretty good job. He did a pretty good job. I'm not going to dump on Pros, man. I thought that he did a pretty good job on this album. Wyclef was Wyclef. Wyclef he's going to give you some funny. He's going to give you some things to think about. But I think, Wyclef, he is who he was, and I think he did an incredible job on this album. So How Many Mics is one of my favorites. Obviously, Fugees La is one of my favorites. Another favorite is obviously Ready or Not. When you hear Ready or Not, I mean, first and foremost, Lauryn on the hook. Ready or Not, Here I Come, You Can't Hide. I don't know, the first couple of times that I heard it, I don't know if necessarily, and I know that was a part of the song, but I also looked a little bit deeper into it, thinking that maybe Lauryn is telling people, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I am Lauryn Hill. I am here to stay. I'm not going anywhere. You're going to have to deal with me. And that's just kind of the way that I took it. That was going to be her calling card as far as what she was going to do. And she did her thing. I mean, like I said, as far as rapping and being on the hook. And then obviously one of my other favorite songs is Fugees La. Fugees La, I remember the video, right? The video has this little plot and they're running or whatever like that, man. But can I let you in on a little secret? One of my favorite parts of the video is where they're standing in this courtyard. It's Wyclef, it's Pros, and it's L Boogie. And Lauryn, she just has this look. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm a stan of Lauryn Hill, even though I might be. Anyway, she's standing there. She's got on this little tank top. She's got on jeans. She's got on Tim's. She looks like a B-girl. And I'm when I saw the video, I was like, yo, she is the ultimate B-girl. I mean, when you come up in this industry and you come up listening to hip hop the way that we did, guys are always attracted to B girls, and she was like the epitome of the B girl. She was smart, she was the dope MC, she could sing, and she looked good. I mean, so you couldn't that look that she had in that video in that one particular scene just kind of rocked me. I was like, yo, I am really, really checking for her. But it was a dope song, man. So I love the song, love the video. One of my other favorite songs on the album was Cowboys. Cowboys, as I mentioned, with Rod Digger, another incredible female MC, and Young Z and Pakia One. And yeah, man. So I love the fact that one of my favorite parts on the album on that particular song was hearing Lauryn and Rod Digger go back and forth on Cowboys. And I think that was, I thought that was really, really dope. Matter of fact, I'm going to play you a clip. We're going to take a quick commercial and we'll be right back. So check this out, man. If you haven't heard this, this is two dope MCs kind of going back and forth. And trust me, I know you'll like it. Check this out. Cowboys, Rod Digger and L Boogie.
Grab your guns, boys. What you find by my side, do we live?
We make damage close. I think I like devotion. If anyone approaches, we like noches. Buenos, then I compose the poem for some many gunslingers, R&B singers, perpetrating gun who make this is perhaps one of the stylists. I inhale large clouds of smoke to my shower, fucking that store and write rhymes for hours. A ghetto missing. Drinking whiskey, scenario. Can't no other niggas in the barrio. North to that's when we in the stereo. That's me, your Rashi, your battle. Cause apparently you no talent, cause you're lazy. Watch these rap bitches get all up in your pocket. See back with it, you said you stop it. Rock, niggas through the roof, burning you like I'm not a thief. Eaters, the cheaters, gonna be retreaters. While mama see this cow be real heaters. I rock Nubian, L rocks Nubian, Swiss.
Lauren, I want to ask you, how do you see the role of women in hip hop? Is it changing, and the role and images that women are portraying, like yourself?
It's something that's always been there, you know what I'm saying? And always will be there. I personally just, excuse me, Megan. Now, women in hip hop is mad important, and I know there are a lot of strong female I won't even say role models, just MCs coming out doing that thing in the future. You got women like Bahamadia, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, sisters like Entice, sister like Trip, we're about to do a show with tonight. Latifah, held up the front, you know what I'm saying? Most definitely Light. You know what I'm saying? They've always been there. Whether or not they got the acknowledgement that they should have, they've always been there. And just now, perhaps somebody like Rage about to get his first female album that goes platinum, hopefully. You know what I'm saying? Maybe they'll truly be acknowledged by the industry as well as the world. Hey, yo, I and I means one. I and I means two. I and I means three with you. Get with my Fugees crew. I move like the Phantom, stalking like the beast. I rise in the east, and if you with me, you'll be deceased. Cause I bring peace to my brothers in the hoodies. You wanna be able to bring your goodies. If you got beef, you know we're ready. I check my rap text to find them niggas that stakes. Getting the bad on me, it shows the wrong.
If you want a podcast where culture, conversation, and life collide, where you get insightful commentary, engaging discussions, and a fresh perspective on everything, then you need to listen to the 12 Kyle podcast. Hosted by the one and only, yours truly, 12 Kyle, a voice that you know and trust. This podcast will bring you thought-provoking moments, compelling stories, and a whole lot of fun. Whether you're a first-time listener or just tuning in, each episode promises to be something new and exciting. So sit back, relax, join 12 Kyle, myself, and my guests as we break down the world around us and give you stories that you've never heard before, from nostalgic throwbacks to everything in between. The 12 Kyle podcast is a front row seat to this conversation. Subscribe now and never miss an episode of the 12 Kyle podcast, where the vibe is always real and the discussion is always worth your time.
And just like that, we're back. So this is what we're talking about today. We're talking about The Score by the Fugees. 20 years later, the year was 1996. Significantly, let me tell you how the album was received. people love this album. I mean, like, it was, you would be hard pressed, particularly back then, to find someone who did not like this album. I think one of the things that was very important about the album is that this was one of the few albums in 1996. Well, there were more than a few, but this was one of the albums that didn't have a West Coast sound, that didn't have any production from Dr. Dre. So it was good and refreshing to see an album be a chart topper that didn't have any type of West Coast feel to it. And again, for most people, this album was a huge surprise because most people didn't think that they would come back like this and it be so well received. But I think the fans of the Fugees, if you were a fan of Blunted on Reality, then you probably knew that they were capable of putting out a dope album, because I think the first album was pretty good, but I don't think anybody saw this coming as far as a commercial success. At that particular time, the mainstay as far as hip hop was concerned, when it comes to critics, would be the Source magazine. The Source magazine gave the score 5 mics. What do I think about the score? It gets 5 mics from me. I think I think when I initially listened to it and when I started loving the album, probably the only song that I didn't particularly care for at the time was the Wyclef joint, No Woman, No Cry. But over time, I got used to that because I'm not a big fan of reggae, unpopular opinion. but yeah, so it was that one. But on this album, there's no skips for me. I mean, like, this is an album that you can listen to all the way through. This is an album that I think even today, all of the cuts, as I mentioned earlier, they fit in together, they blend together. They have a message in their songs. As I mentioned, police brutality, they talk about corruption, they talk about, in the skits, they talk about things that's going on in Black neighborhoods. So I think, this album is, well put together. It is timeless. I think it's one of those albums that here we are 20 years later and we're still talking about it and we're still reveling in the fact that how dope of an album it was. So the Source gave it 5 mics. It's a 5 mic album to me. I don't think I don't see anything wrong with this album. Trust me. And like I said, it still has major replay value. So, and that's one of the ways you can tell if an album is a 5 micer or not. Can you listen to it 20 years later and still get something from it? This album, you definitely can. You definitely can. So for those of you listening, if you have not listened to the score when you finish listening to this podcast, make sure that you listen to this album. You don't want to miss out on it. So here we are 20 years later, the score, it's all said and done. Let me tell you what happened after the score. Obviously, as I mentioned at the top, album sold a lot of records. Sometimes when you have success, things fall apart. The Roots told us that. Believe it or not, y'all, the group broke up. I know it's crazy when you think about it, but the group went their separate ways. Pras went his way, Wyclef went his way, Lauryn went her way. So it's, as a fan, I think it's very disappointing when you think about it, because they only made 2 albums. And their second album, which was their best album, is heralded as one of the best albums of 1996. Many in hip hop circles herald this album as a classic. And there was no follow-up, not as a group. Individually, they all kind of did their own thing. Pras went on to make the song Ghetto Superstar with Maya and ODB. He had another album come out in, I think it was 2005, called Win, Lose, or Draw. I'm gonna be honest, I never heard that album. And that's not to say that it was bad. I just never heard it. If you've heard it and you think it was dope, tell me about it. Hit me up on Twitter. Maybe we could talk about it. I just never heard the album. Wyclef he moved on, obviously, and he moved on in a major way. Since the score, Wyclef has recorded 10 solo albums. And Wyclef has been largely successful. He was nominated for a Grammy for his Carnival album. That Carnival album was dope. It wasn't the score, but Wyclef, sold a bunch of records. I think that it went double platinum. It featured hits like "Going to November," "We Trying to Stay Alive" with that old Saturday Night Fever theme, and Guantanamera. So Wyclef, he was hugely successful. I think the last thing I heard from Wyclef, and it's not to say that Wyclef hasn't made any music, because I just know that he's made 10 albums since then. But the last we heard from Wyclef, he was trying to run for president of Haiti. Don't think that worked out too good. But Wyclef is still talented. He's still making music. He's still doing a lot of producing. Personally, I would like to see the Fugees get back together and make another run for it. But it remains to be seen if that will happen. Since 1996, Lauryn Hill crafted her own album called The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. And that album was heralded as being one of the best albums of all time by a lot of people. Top 10, top 20 hip hop album of all time. Now, it gets kind of funny because some people will say that it's not a hip hop album because she's only rhyming on like 2 tracks. Nonetheless, it shows the versatility of L Boogie. I love that album. It's an incredible album. If you haven't listened to it, if you don't have it, you need to get it. If you don't have it, I don't know how you don't have it, because everybody has that album. Nonetheless, that album went, I want to say, like 5 times platinum. She won 5 Grammys from it. She also subsequently did a MTV Unplugged album that was, it was okay. But things kind of started to shake up for L Boogie at that particular time. She got married to Rohan Marley, and subsequently had a couple kids. Then she had a couple more kids. Then she had a couple more kids. And, people think Lauryn lost her mind. I don't know. I mean, I know she did a bid in jail for like 3 months for tax evasion. And, Lauryn is not, I don't know what Lauryn Hill is at this point. I mean, like, I'll give you an example, right? Like, I live here in Atlanta, and Lauryn was supposed to come here and perform. I think it was like a year and a half ago. And tickets were like mad high. It's just Lauryn. Just nobody else. No opening act. No nothing. It's supposed to just be Lauryn. And from what I understood, she was just gonna be sitting on the stage. She wasn't gonna be doing any Fuji joints. She was just gonna be sitting on the stage strumming her guitar. So I'm like, okay, all right. So I got the word. The tickets were like $90 a pop. Word. Okay. I don't really want to drop 90, but okay. You know what? Let's do it. This L Boogie. I love L Boogie. This is my girl. So I'm just about to drop the tickets, and then I'm hearing these rumors about she's having these shows and she's wigging out at the shows and stuff. And something said, nah, you know what? Don't get those tickets, B. And I didn't buy the tickets. One of my homegirls bought tickets to that particular show here in Atlanta. Let me tell you what happened. L Boogie showed up at the concert like 2 hours late. Not only did she show up late, but then she didn't want to perform. And I think they ended up refunding, giving people their money back. Like, they never got a chance to see her. I would have been so pissed if I had gone to see Lauryn Hill and she did not perform the hits. I want to hear the hits, man. I don't want to see you just sitting there on the stage with your guitar looking crazy. And I mean, like, even her physical appearance, she does not look like the L Boogie that I remember from the videos. Like, and not to say she's had plastic surgery or anything, but it's just different, man. Y'all know. I mean, I don't have to tell y'all. And I'm a huge fan. I'm still a fan. It's disappointing, man, because I think she has so much talent. I mean, she's an MC. She's a singer. She's a songwriter. I mean, she does it all. And just to see her kind of, and I don't know really where to pinpoint, where things went wrong. I do know this much. After hearing that Fugees album, right, I think we knew, and Wyclef alluded to it as I mentioned in the Zealot song, is that, you know, people were saying that Lauryn should go solo. Well, after hearing the score, we knew she was going solo. I mean, like, that was almost like a foregone conclusion that Lauryn Hill was going to go solo. I think one of the tracks, other than the singing and everything, one of the track, the last track on the album, I'll never forget it. When I heard it for the first time, I said to myself, this is it. She's done. Manifest. She absolutely ripped it. If you listen to the subject matter, what she's talking about, she kills the track, right? And you just knew at that point that she was done. Like, she didn't have anything else to offer to the Fugees, you know, other than just being in the group. Like, because she could have and would have been so much more successful on her own. And she was. The frustrating thing is that, you know, I don't know if we'll ever get L Boogie back. I don't know if we'll ever get Lauryn Hill back. But I think fans like myself, we kind of hold out hope. We kind of hold out hope that the Fugees will get back together and do another album. In 2005, they dropped a song called Take It Easy, and, you know, was met with, you know, critical acclaim. People liked it. And the word on the street was, okay, well, they did this song. They're going to do another album. It's 2016. No album. So I don't know, man. So it's a little disappointing. So I will be honest, as a fan, I'd like to see that happen. But the realist in me understands that it probably won't happen. Nonetheless, man, all we got from the Fugees was one good album and an incredible dope album. And if that's all that we have, then that's all that we'll ever have. And I'm okay. I'm as a fan, I'm okay with that. Nonetheless, man, 20 years later, the Fugees, The Score, incredible album. As I mentioned to you at the top, if you haven't done so already, make sure that you listen to the album, cop the album. You got to have it in your collection. If you disagree with me or you have something to say, make sure that you hit me up in the comment section, or you can shoot me a tweet at 12Kyle. We're going to close out. I'm going to play the Manifest cut, and then we're going to leave on Take It Easy. That's going to do it for me this time. I'm 12Kyle. Thanks again for listening to the 12Kyle podcast. I'm going to holler at you next time. Peace.
I loved hard once, but the love wasn't returned. I found out the man I died for, he wasn't even concerned. In time it turned, he tried to burn me like a perm. Though my eyes saw the deception, my heart wouldn't let me learn from some dumb woman was I. And every time he lied, he would cry, and inside I'd die. My heart must have died 1,000 deaths. Compared myself to Tony Braxton, thought I'd never catch my breath. Nothing left, he stole the heart beating from my chest. I tried to call a cop, that type of thief they can't arrest. Pain suppressed will lead to cardiac arrest. Diamonds deserve diamonds, but he convinced me I was worth less. When my people would protest, I told them mind their business cause my shit was complex, more than just a sex. I was blessed but couldn't feel it like when I was caressed. I've spent nights clutching my breast, overwhelmed by God's test. I was God's best, contemplating death that you leg. No man is ever worth the paradise manifest. Reggie, don't cut me off when I'm going. Yeah. I hear myself. Yeah. You can bring the beat up a little bit in headphones. Bring the beat up a little bit. We about to drop. We about to drop. Yeah. I got moxie. I'm so damn foxy. Industry try to block me like hops and paparazzi. Full stop, don't copy, just copy properly. Everybody same policy, universal equality, responsibility, policy to survive economically. Some people do it comically, future freedom, equality, invest your money properly. People owe me apology, intellectual property, stealing, stolen, somebody, souls, controlling, robbery, cold, lack of camaraderie, clothes. You can't bother me, man, on the hair, celebrate. Honestly, all these jokers economy. There's with no autonomy, y'all just don't give autonomy. I see you looking with your best.
How you bruise it, here comes the rocket. Take it easy. Take it easy. Too much extra me. Take it easy. Good with the take it easy. You're moving bricks, but you better take it easy. Here's a tip. Be truthful as don't tip twice, but your best friend deep thing. And that dog sniffing the back of his last. And I ain't rhyming in a minute, but y'all ain't catch up. And I ain't blood on your shirt, man. That's kick. Picture clip, give him a writer to give him help. I'd rather kill myself, become a ghost and write for myself. Cause I'm the top celebrity, and I flow for the thug, gypsies, and hippies. Yeah, a ghetto maestro with a nat turn of flow. Malcolm X come out, hit the blue club, yo. Looking much better than getting. Here comes the rocket. Too much ex-mommy. Mommy, take it easy.
No originals get plagiarized, made with minors must supervise. His promise get scooping out, allocators blinded, scooping out wicked people choose homicide, wrecks of society. The Negro, those called Libra, and Chica's completing them, addiction, fiction, bleeding, and capitalism. Understanding cheating and the ignorance of and loyalty is leaving them, got royalty believing them. Open deceiving them, the silent deceiving them, reckless driving and even them. Went to a picture. The record, I reckon. The reconcile, the reconcile, reconcile again, reconcile, the recognition, the reconcile, someone slipping off my head. We're about to raise it, I reconciliation. We're about to do, women with the head in the gun.
Hey, the track, which I thought I wasn't coming. Yeah, right. Been in LA, you place few millions. Back with the Fugees, fighting for a few millions. I play villain. Boy, chillin'. Boy, that cat for me feeling. Angela, Simone, you know them willing. Can't fight the feeling when I'm cool in the ass. Every girl up together, superstar. Hip hop like pinstripe lean. Like I love for my crew. Like big hat for season. Pulling screen. These and C's. Man, I don't really want to do it. Take it easy. I see you looking, but you better take it easy. So you better take it easy. Here comes the rocket. Take it easy. Too much ex-mommy. Mommy, take it easy. Yeah. We got L Boogie in the house. Broswell in the house. Terry Wonder. Yeah. Big Bro, I see you in the back. Let's get this thing started. Let's stay focus. Oh, if you don't know what's going on, man, the Fugees is back on this serious thing right now. You scared yet? Pack your dippy dub box.
Thank you for listening. This concludes the episode. Be sure to subscribe to the Rap Soul podcast. You can find the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Follow the podcast on social media. And feel free to continue this discussion on our Reddit page. More importantly, share this podcast with a friend or family member who loves music as much as you do. Until next time, 5,000.